Hello, my name is Andy Sowter, and I'm a member of the Climate Reality Project here in Japan. And I want to tell you about the Climate Reality Project, what we do, and a little bit about climate change and why it's important that we educate people about what's happening with climate change. So I want to start by actually taking you back in time and talking about the measurement of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. And we start here at the Mauna Loa Observatory in Hawaii. Using that large tower on the left of the screen, they've been measuring the carbon dioxide levels in the Earth's atmosphere ever since 1958. The reason why they measure it here is because, as you can see, Mauna Loa is based in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. So it's a long way from any polluting factories. Okay, it's a good place to measure the carbon dioxide levels in the Earth's atmosphere. So these carbon dioxide levels that they've been measuring show a similar pattern. In spring, the amount of carbon dioxide goes up, and then in autumn or fall, the amount of carbon dioxide level comes down. But the overall trend is up. Carbon dioxide is going up. Now, what does this mean? Well, having a look at the entire graph, okay, this graph is referred to as the Keeling curve after the person who started taking the measurements. That's Dr. Charles Keeling. You can see that levels have increased since they started recording in 1958. In fact, in 1958, the level was 318 parts per million. But what does this mean in a historical context? Using ice core samples from the Arctic and Antarctic, scientists have been able to actually go back in time and work out what the carbon dioxide levels have been historically. And as you can see from this graph, historically, going back 800,000 years, carbon dioxide levels in the atmosphere had never gone above 300 parts per million. That's this red line here. But in 1958, it was already 318 parts per million. So this tells you that 318 parts per million is already historically high, the highest, in fact, in a very, very long time. And in fact, this year, for the first time in a very long time, the carbon dioxide levels have actually gone above 420 parts per million. So the the Keeling curve was used to make predictions. Okay, simple science suggests that as more carbon dioxide enters our atmosphere, then the greenhouse effect will actually raise global temperatures, trapping heat and causing climate change. So these were the predictions that were made way back in 1958. So as the carbon dioxide levels have increased and we've started seeing these predictions or predicted climate changes become reality, we've also seen a rise in the number of people who have been fighting to try and prevent this from happening. And one person who's been at the forefront of this fight is Al Gore, the ex-US Vice President. And now I'm going to turn over my presentation to the actual recording. He gave a slideshow to a group of friends in a barn on his farm in Tennessee in the USA. And starting from that very small presentation, he's expanded to create a global organization fighting against or fighting to prevent climate change, which is called the Climate Reality Project. Now, in 2013, I completed training to become a member of this group. And in 2019, it expanded here to Japan. And so today, what I'd like to do is share my journey and introduce you to the Japanese branch of the Climate Reality Leaders Group. Now, why is this important? Because basically, we sit at a critical period in the history of humanity. And I know that sounds like a rather large claim to make, but it is true. We have a very short period of time in which we can change our children and our grandchildren's futures. Climate change is an existential global threat, and the effects of climate change are now being felt every single day in every single country around the world. This picture here is just a collection of some of the climate disasters that have affected just Australia, which is where I'm from, and that's just this year. We've had bushfires, we've had coral bleaching, we've had fish death due to algal blooms, we've got drought in some parts of the country, and we've got flooding happening all over the eastern states of the US, of Australia, and not just once. We've actually had 3 floods in Australia just this year. So it's a daily event. It's no longer becoming unusual. Now, the Climate Change Reality Leadership Group is one organization that allows individuals to contribute to prevent climate change. And I'm hoping that by watching my presentation, you'll learn more about climate change and about the Japanese branch of the Climate Reality Project. So I'm going to give you a quick, actually I'm going to ask Mr. Bill Nye to give you a quick lesson in Climate Change 101. Then I'm going to explain my story, how I joined, why I joined, and what actions I've taken. And then I will quickly explain what the Climate Reality Project in Japan is. So let's start here. What is climate change? Now, I'm just going to ask you to watch a 4-minute video. It's put together by Bill Nye and the Climate Reality Group. And I think it clearly summarizes the key ideas of climate change. So I will just start that now. And I'll put the subtitles on in English, I beg your pardon.
Despite the noise about uncertainty in the political arena,
warming will actually save lives, not endanger them.
do I believe scientists? No! The fundamentals of climate change have been understood by scientists for decades. To start with, there are naturally occurring gases, such as carbon dioxide and methane in the Earth's atmosphere. In themselves, they aren't bad. In fact, we need them in limited quantities to keep our atmosphere at just the right temperature for life as we know it to exist on Earth. But if we produce an excess of these gases, as we have, the temperature rises, as it has. If you want, you can replicate this effect yourself in a simple lab experiment. Here's how. Take 2 identical bottles and set them side by side. Put a thermometer in each bottle and seal them. Then run a hose from a source of CO2 into one of the bottles. Shine 2 heat lamps of equal intensity at equal distance onto each one. Within minutes, you will see the temperature of the bottle with the carbon dioxide in it rising faster and higher. The bottles are like our atmosphere. The lamps are like our sun. Most of the solar radiation reaching the Earth is absorbed by the surface and atmosphere, which in turn radiates energy out toward space as infrared energy, heat. Most of the heat energy from the surface is then absorbed by the greenhouse gases in the atmosphere and radiated back down toward the surface. The more greenhouse gases we create, the more heat is absorbed and sent back toward the surface to cause further warming. This recycled heat does more than bump up the thermometer. Warm air has the capacity to hold more moisture, and water vapor is itself a greenhouse gas. So there's even more warming, which means the planet's entire hydrological cycle, the water cycle, is affected. More evaporation, more precipitation, more extremes in general. For nearly 1 million years, the CO2 content of the atmosphere moved within a natural bandwidth. But during the Industrial Revolution, humans started burning fossil fuels in increasingly large amounts. In fact, now that's around 7 billion of us, rely on carbon-based fuels for 85% of our energy. Humans currently produce around 35 billion tons of carbon dioxide every year. About 55% of that is absorbed by the ocean, land, and vegetation, while the rest remains in the atmosphere. Most of that excess comes from burning fossil fuels, and more than half of the emissions come from power plants and factories, while about a third comes from our various forms of transportation. If we continue the current trajectory, by the time our children reach middle age, the levels of atmospheric CO2 will reach twice that of our planet's long-time natural levels. That is why we're already seeing the temperature increase, and we're already seeing the consequences. 4% more moisture in the atmosphere above the ocean is enough to transition to a new normal. Dramatic weather events, floods, storms, droughts, fires, they're all happening at a frequency and intensity we've never experienced throughout human history. In other words, climate change. We've set this chain in motion, but the truly cataclysmic changes can be prevented if we act now.
Carbon dioxide is not a harmful gas, it is a harmless gas.
The first step is to separate fact from fiction. This climate science is no longer a matter of opinion, politics, or dogma. So let's not let a few dirty energy companies fool us or slow us down. There are now increasing numbers of affordable, clean tech energy sources, all available to us in limitless supply. By embracing them, we will create jobs and improve the economy. The current climate crisis is reality. We can't wish it away. What we can do is cease the debate and the denial and move on to solutions together.
Okay, so I'll just get rid of that before it plays the next one. We'll just come back here. Okay, so that was a really good summary of what climate change actually is. So just to quickly re-summarize, carbon dioxide is a greenhouse gas. Okay, carbon dioxide has been rapidly increasing, as we've seen. And this is due to humans burning of fossil fuels. That red line on the graph that you can see is actually the consumption or burning of fossil fuels. And so you can see that that has actually caused the increase in carbon dioxide. This burning has actually rapidly increased since the end of the Second World War. Okay, so you can see on this graph, it's gone up massively since the end of the Second World War, and it's only just starting now to taper off. So we know what the solutions are. Okay, we have to stop burning fossil fuels for transportation, for electricity, and for heating. And we know how to do that. We have the technology, renewable energies. We already have what we need to make the change. We just need the political will to do this. So we must do it. We can do it. And with your help, hopefully, together, we will do it. And we've already got some good examples of what has been done. In 2015, there was a global agreement. It was groundbreaking. It was a climate conference called the 2015 Paris Agreement, and every nation in the world agreed that they would start working towards net zero greenhouse gases. Similarly, okay, the aim was actually to try and minimize the average global temperature to 1.5 degrees since pre-industrial levels. And just to give you an idea of what that means, we're already at 1.1 degree above pre-industrial levels. So we don't have much room to move. 74% of global carbon dioxide emissions are actually made by countries that have agreed to these goals. So this is good news. These countries have actually said, yes, we are going to set a net zero target. So that's encouraging. Also, in the commercial sector, 370 global companies have similarly committed to go 100% renewable. People from, here are a few of the companies, and people from all over the world are making their voices heard, including here in Japan. There have been global movements all over the world. So this presentation is a request for you to join us, okay? So join those who are using their voices, their votes, and their choices to fight. Because basically, if you use your voice and your vote, your choice, speak truth to power, like the world depends on it, because the world does actually depend on it. We're not talking about small things. This is a massive existential threat to the whole planet. So now what I would like to do is just tell you my journey, my story, and the actions that I've taken. And I'm running out of time, so I have to do this super quickly. All right. So, well, let's just start with my story, shall we? I was born in 1969. At that time, the carbon dioxide levels were 325 ppm. When I went to university, I had a background in both environmental and engineering. So I had interests in both fossil fuels and the environment. Okay, here are a couple of my professors. When I started work, I actually worked for the world's biggest mining company, and I helped generate quite a few few greenhouse gases. You can see this flume here is all carbon dioxide. This is natural gas being burnt off as part of this process. So for a long time, I was interested in the environment, but I was working in a company which was doing the opposite to what needed to be done. And I was what you'd call an armchair activist. Then two things happened that made me question what I was doing and made me want to change. Okay, so the first thing was in 2005, my daughter was born. At that stage, the carbon dioxide was 380 parts per million. Then later in 2009, my son was born. The other thing that happened was I watched a movie by Al Gore. It was called An Inconvenient Truth, and it was a documentary that he put together about climate change. And it's one of the most powerful movies I've ever watched. And in it, he described how climate change will change the future. And there's one thing he said in this movie that really struck me, and that was this: future generations may well have occasion to ask themselves, what were our parents thinking? Why didn't they wake up when they had the chance? And this thought made me think, okay, what future am I leaving for my children? I have to do something. And so I decided that I would. So in 2012, I joined the Climate Reality Project by entering my details on a website that looks just like this one. I then submitted an application to join the Climate Reality Leader training program in Chicago, and I was accepted, and I attended the conference later that year. And I took this photo of Al Gore at that conference. When I finally became a climate reality leader, there were only 4 climate reality leaders in all of Japan. So when I came back to Japan, I decided, okay, I had to make a difference. Now, the first thing I did was I gave a presentation at Konan University, and there were 200 students forced to watch my presentation. So that was pretty good. Then a little bit later the same year, I did a Pecha Kucha. That is where you have to present 20 slides in 20 seconds. Very, very difficult. But again, I had a good audience. There was about 50 people there. And then reality hit, not climate reality, but just the reality of how difficult it is to talk about this problem. In 2014, I gave a presentation at Peace as a Global Language, and my audience was 1. And that one person was the poor student that had to hold the time cards to let me know that my presentation was coming to an end. So I realized that it was going to be very difficult to spread this message. Similarly, in 2014, I applied to the Japanese Association of Language Teachers to do a presentation about climate change. That application was denied. They said it wasn't relevant to teaching. It was the theme was conversations across borders, but climate change was not part of that conversation. And again, in 2015, with a group of other academics who were similarly minded, we put in an application to do a forum. And again, we were denied. And one of the teachers actually said this. He said, "I've been in a mild state of shock. Our forum proposal was not accepted. I thought it was a strong and well-written proposal for a forum on critical issues that don't nearly get enough attention at JOLT, but somehow, apparently the reviewers thought otherwise." So you can see it's a fight, and it's a difficult fight, but I didn't give up. I decided I would try and go to some more climate-friendly forums. In 2014, I gave a presentation through the NARA chapter of JOLT to about 200 people, so that was good. In addition to the presentations, I've been doing other things. So I have put together an online magazine using a website called Flipboard. And this allows me just to collect information and to share it very quickly, which I can do with my students and other interested people. And you can see I've got a few viewers and a few followers there. Also, I've been helping students. So a group of students at Kangaku, members of the International Affairs Club, wanted to put together a conference. So I helped organize speakers for the conference. In 2017, I pre-ordered Al Gore's second movie, okay, an inconvenient sequel, Truth to Power, and we had a screening of the movie at the Peace as a Global Language conference. It was only the second time it was ever shown in Japan and the first time in Western Japan. And of course, I've tried to incorporate it into my lessons. So wherever it's been appropriate, I have either created a small component of a course, or in some cases, I've been lucky enough to complete to make an entire course, and I've been able to influence students that way. But my goal is not to brainwash them. My goal is to allow students to do research and then to discuss their ideas and share their opinions and come to their own conclusions about climate change. So you've now heard me discuss why I became a member and the actions that I've taken. Now I just want to quickly, very, very quickly explain how climate change can help individuals who are looking to take their own actions. First of all, I cannot recommend the climate reality leadership training enough. They provide access to the climate change slideshow deck, but more importantly, there are some amazing people at these conferences. They all have the same goal to prevent climate change, but they're all doing it in their own way. I met ambassadors, industry leaders, and also other people just like me, just normal people. So from doing this, you get access to the slide deck, okay? It's either a PowerPoint or Keynote, and this is created by, originally by Al Gore, and now by members of his team at the Climate Change Reality Project. Each slide gives you the information that you need to provide. It also tells you whether it can be shared. Many of the slides I wanted to show you today actually can't be shared because it's being recorded. The slide decks are both in English and also more recently in Japanese. So in case anybody wanted to know what Osaka is going to look like with a 3-degree rise, this is how much land would be lost in Osaka. So in addition to that, the Climate Reality Project also has an international event every year called 24 Hours of Reality. And in 2016, we were able to include Japan in that for the first time. I really wanted a climate reality training event to be held in Japan. I kept pushing for it. And finally, in October of 2019, it happened. Al Gore came to Japan and we had a climate training. And this was a photo from that training event. And now finally, we have a Japanese branch of the Climate Reality Project. There's also an African branch and they're doing some amazing work as well. Okay. Now, what I would like to do, just to try and finish off, just quickly, Richard, do I have enough time? It's probably another 5 minutes.
Okay, Andy, that's okay.
5 minutes is good.
Yeah, and 5 minutes is fine.
Okay, great. Thank you, everybody, for your patience. What I would like to show you now is a recording by Yuiko Mitani. I'm just trying to get rid of this. She's a member of the Climate Reality Project Japan, and she's doing some great work. So this is a message in Japanese with a little bit of English, but I will follow it up with a short summary.
はい、皆さんこんにちは。クライメートリアリティプロジェクトジャパンの三谷と申します。Hi all, my name is Yuiko Mitani from Climate Reality Project Japan. CRP ジャパンと私たち呼んでいるんですが、気候変動対策に取り組む国際イニシアチブの、日本支部になります。私たちの活動の一例として、ちょっと写真に出てるんですが、トレーニングを重視していまして、その気候変動とか、対策に関する、情報を共有するようなトレーニングを実施しています。で、今、これまでにですね、190カ国とか地域から、活動に、このトレーニングを、受けてくださった皆さんがボランティアとして、活動しています。で、そのボランティアの皆さんの、ネットワーク、コミュニティのようなものが私たちの、団体のコアなんですが、ご覧の通りですね、今190カ国地域から42,734名が、リーダーというそのボランティアとして、活動をしてくださっています。で、日本には今868名が登録されているという状況です。これは2019年の10月に東京で行ったトレーニングの様子で、はい、真ん中に映っているのが団体創設者のアルゴア元アメリカ副大統領が映っています。はい。で、今日本で特に力を入れているものが、このアクショングループスという活動なんですが、ご覧の、気候変動に関する6つのトピック、プラス英語グループというのを作って、全部で7つですね、7つのグループに、それぞれの、関心領域でリーダーたち、そのボランティアたちが分かれて、それぞれの気候アクションを、プラン、そして実行しているという、活動を今力入れています。はい、ちょっと短いんですが、団体紹介というところで、ぜひ皆さん、関心があったり、活動に参加したいなどありましたら、ぜひお気軽にご連絡いただければと思います。ありがとうございました。
Okay, so hang on. Go to the next slide. So Yuiko, I just quickly explain some of what she was saying for those of you who don't have Japanese like me. The Climate Reality Project Japan has about 850 members. Okay, there are over 40,000 members of the Climate Reality Project worldwide in 190 different countries. The Climate Reality Project Japan branch, okay, we have access to the Climate Reality website, but we also have access to different groups, both on Facebook and also through a Slack set of groups that we've set up. And this is both in English and in Japanese. Okay, there are various different groups depending on your interests. And of course, I'm a member of the English group, and I'm actually a contact person for that group if you're interested. So in conclusion, today, we've watched a quick lesson on Climate Change 101. I've told you a little bit about my story, my journey, why I decided to join Climate Reality Project, and what actions I've taken since doing that. And I've told you how you can help. So join a group like the Climate Reality Project Japan or something similar, and make your voice heard. Okay, so last couple of slides. Today, these are the headlines in the UK. UK is experiencing unprecedented heat wave. They're expecting thousands maybe to die. They're going to have over 40 degrees of heat for the first time in recorded history. It was only 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago that this was happening in Japan. We had unprecedented heat waves. This is happening everywhere in the world every single day, and we need to take action. So we must take action. We can take action, and we will together solve the climate crisis. So my question to you is this. I've told you my story. What is your story going to be in the year 2022? Okay, that's the end of my presentation. I will just quickly stop sharing my screen. Bear with me.
Okay,
And
well,
I'll
let's
hand
get
it back over to you.
Thanks very much, Andy.